We're here today to speak with one of the contributors to our new book, How to Heal Our Divides. Martin Brooks has been with Peace Catalyst International since 2011, when he and his wife Susan returned from Turkish Cyprus. Drawing on the teachings and examples of Jesus, Martin has worked with local churches and mosques to create safe spaces to ask questions and build greater trust between Christians and Muslims. He's organized dialogue events, iftar meals, and peace feasts with Palestinians, Syrians, Turks, Pakistanis, Somalis, Kurds, and Iranians. As Peace Catalyst Director of Partnerships, he organized a cooperative effort between Peace Catalyst International, World Vision, World Relief, Sojourners, National Association of Evangelicals, Pathways Center for Mutual Respect at Yale University, Evangelicals for Social Action, Global Immersion Project, National Latino Evangelical Coalition, and Evangelicals for Middle East Understanding. This partnership was called Evangelicals for Peace and brought together evangelical groups to help the churches understand foreign policy issues through the lens of the Prince of Peace. Martin has a Master's of International Relations from Near East University and is pursuing a Doctorate of Education of Social Change at Bellarmine University. Martin, it's so wonderful to have you participating in this program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it's my great pleasure, Brian. Thanks for having me.
So, I did a little bit of your background, but maybe you could expand on that for folks that don't know you as well.
Yeah, my wife and I went to Mozambique, Africa in 1996 as missionaries. And so we came into this work through a missions background, but you mentioned that we went to Turkish Cyprus. That was the last time we lived internationally as a family. And in that experience, we became great friends with Palestinians that lived there. And it really sort of rocked my world because many of the things that I'd been taught about Muslims, I was in relationship, in friendship, I was able to explore those things and realize that much of what I'd been taught was based on stereotypes and wasn't very nuanced. So we returned to the States and began saying these things to the churches. And the churches were not sympathetic. It was a post 9/11 world. Muslims were the enemy in the minds of many. And the churches had a hard time accepting that we needed to change our posture toward Muslims. So that's when I joined Peace Catalyst. That was 2011. And here we are today.
So tell us about how Peace Catalyst got started and, how it evolved to what it looks like today.
Peace Catalyst was started in 2010 by Rick Love. Dr. Rick Love had been the executive director of Frontiers Missions, and he'd resigned from Frontiers a couple of years before that. Had helped organize the Common Word Conference at Yale University. The Muslim community had written an open letter to the Christian community talking about a common word of love between Muslims and Christians. And they suggested that we should build on that platform of love. Even though there are theological differences, we should learn to thrive together. So that was pre-Peace Catalyst, but very influential in the beginnings of Peace Catalyst. So a couple of years after that, Rick started Peace Catalyst in 2010. I joined in 2011. Of course, Rick passed away in December of 2019, and I'm now the president of Peace Catalyst.
And if you had to summarize the mission of Peace Catalyst, just in a phrase or two, what would it be?
It started to help Christians mend the divide with Muslims. And that's been our focus for the last 10 years. You mentioned several Peace Feast events that I had done personally here in Louisville with different populations that live here. We've done many conferences working with Muslims, trying to help Christians understand Muslims in the U.S. Muslims, of course, are a minority population, 1 to 3% of the total population, and Christians hold power here in the U.S. And are not terribly motivated to reach beyond the walls of the church to understand the other. So we started trying to help Christians understand Muslims, but more than understand, come into contact with Muslims. You can get on the web and read all kinds of things that may or may not be accurate. But in relationship, we can ask questions that sometimes would come off offensive without the relationship first. So we were trying to facilitate those relationships.
Good, good. So there's also a book that Rick wrote, Peace Catalyst book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I forget the year that he wrote that, about 2014 as I recall. And it was an attempt to articulate a theological foundation for building peace. So many of, I grew up in very conservative churches, and peace building is what liberal people did. We were all about saving the lost, and proclaiming the gospel. And it was a journey for me to shift that paradigm to where we can seek the mutual thriving of everyone. And so the book Peace Catalyst was sharing Rick's journey, a similar journey that I just to my own, and then giving some theological space for that to happen, because there's this angst that we feel as like a conservative evangelical. It's like, am I disappointing God by not aggressively evangelizing people? And Rick wanted to help people resolve that conflict, that inner conflict. So that's that book.
Good, good, good. So PCI offers like experiential learning, training, various types of activism. Can you talk a little bit more about your specific programs?
Yeah, we're in 15 or 17 cities in the U.S. We have one couple that lives in Sarajevo in Bosnia, and another couple that lives in Indonesia. So the programs differ from city to city. We would encourage our staff to assess what's going on in your city and then choose from the different programs that we've run other places to run locally. Essentially, all peacemaking is local. What's going on with the people across the table from you? Now, Rick's vision for Peace Catalyst was to be both local, approaching peacemaking from a grassroots level, but also realizing that there's a collective thinking narrative that needs to be addressed from both in a political realm and in the church hierarchy. So Rick was very intentional, and we continue to be intentional about bringing leaders together from different organizations, even building connections with policymakers, trying to understand how what happens domestically affects what happens internationally. So specific programs, if we were to go into a city, one of our key events is called a Peace Feast, and we will go to an ethnic restaurant, and, what's your slowest night of the week? We'll bring you, 50 to 80 people and have a conversation around the ethnicity represented by the owner of the restaurant usually. So as I said, as you read in the intro bio, we've done Persian Peace Feast, Turkish Peace Feast, etc. Just many. And that's a great way to bring people together over a meal. Meals help relax the whole environment. And then our desire was that friendships would develop from that. And what we found in time was that that takes a little bit more effort. It's one thing to come share a meal, one thing to go to a seminar, but for the friendships to develop, I don't know if it's a different skill set, a different personality type, but we've spent some time thinking about how do we move it to the next level, and the next level would be collaborating with these marginalized groups to help them achieve um, their desires. And we do this all through the lens of Jesus, believing that he went to the other, the marginalized, and embraced them and empowered them. So we find our example in the teachings and example of Jesus.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, how would you recommend that people get involved in work that Peace Catalyst does?
Well, we have just started. We're launching. We haven't even announced it publicly yet. We've done some pilot groups of a Facebook group that's called the Christian Peace Building Network. And for people who, the purpose of this set of modules that people work through either individually or with a small group of people is not to convince you that you need to pursue peace, but to equip the person on how to give them some tools. And the first few units, the first one is on shalom. And we think of shalom as what was present in the garden at creation, what God called very good. And we've been given this ministry of reconciliation as ambassadors for the Prince of Peace. So shalom, I'm off topic, sorry. Shalom is the first unit. The second unit is understanding, some tools to understand what's going on the surface level and a deeper level. The third unit is on connecting to how are some practical ways that we can connect and healthy ways that we can connect. Instead of showing up with all of the answers, how can we empower the people around us? And the fourth unit is on collaborating, working together to pursue the peace of the city. So that's one way to join that Facebook group is a great introduction. And it's not just Peace Catalyst that's in that group. The World Evangelical Alliance Peace and Reconciliation Network has also joined us to help administer that group. Another group, Telos, has joined us to help administer that group. And the Global Immersion Project is also involved in that group. So to join that group, you would be getting the thinking of several Christian peace building or peace-oriented organizations. The second way to get involved with Peace Catalyst is, of course, go to the web page. We're always looking for more staff and volunteers. And we're right now rethinking the mission and vision. We've been known as an organization that brings Christians and Muslims together, but we don't want to imply that Muslims are the problem. They're our friends. So and the things that we've learned working with Muslims as a minority group in the U.S. is that the same principles apply to any marginalized group. And the evangelical churches, the conservative churches, have not done a very good job of connecting to the other. And we would like to be in a position where we help the churches understand, connect, collaborate, seek the mutual thriving of all. again, I go back to that passage in Jeremiah 29, where it says, seek the peace, seek the shalom of the city. So Rick referred to that passage a lot, and we still reference back to it. So the two things would be the Facebook group, go to the web page and talk to us about becoming staff. We want to become a mobilizing agency, like a sending agency, sort of like a mission agency, but our mission is the restoration of shalom, peace, full stop, no evangelism connected to it. So don't hear me say this is like a platform for evangelism. This is a platform to point to Jesus as amazing, but to seek the shalom, to seek the mutual thriving of everyone as we work together.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm sure with the pandemic, you've had to suspend the peace feasts, and more in-person kinds of things like that. Do you see those coming back next year, say?
Well, who knows? The news changes as the pandemic ebbs and flows, and will the vaccinations in the U.S. affect things, and our work is mostly in the U.S., but it's also international, and what will happen internationally. We certainly hope the Peace Feast will return. But like everybody, we're learning to do things on Zoom. And, there are small gatherings that are happening. I think what COVID brought about for us was a deepening of the relationships that already existed. It's been difficult to create new relationships over Zoom, but COVID has given us time to go deeper with a few relationships that were already established.
Interesting. I can see that being the case. Well, Martin, thank you very much for the wonderful work that you are doing, that Peace Catalyst is doing, and thank you for participating in this book. I think it's a contribution of healing divides. That's an important one, and I want people to be able to learn about it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the book, and the opportunity to celebrate what's going on. John Paul Lederach wrote a book. I just lost the name of it. Anyway, John Paul Lederach wrote a book that talked about how if we need to understand, we need to be able to see ourselves in relationship with the other. And part of being able to see ourselves in relationship with the other is having opportunities to tell the stories, the success stories of what's happening, to read about all the different organizations that you're highlighting and the good things that are happening, so that we can have this moral imagination, which is the name of the book, The Moral Imagination by John Paul Lederach.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always nice to have some good news to talk about and some success stories, as you said, as opposed to just the bad things that we hear every day in the news.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks again, Martin.
Thank you so much, Brian.